we're involved with groups, involved with people, involved with music, and begin to see ourselves as a particular way, our self-perception, and our subconscious just accommodated that self-perception and made that self-perception a reality.
I tell my daughter all the time, why I'm so wise? Because I made so many mistakes. We know that. That's where our wisdom comes from. Come on, we were all kids. We all grew up. We all messed up.
Yeah, situations today where we say, well, God, how come it was easier before? You know, it seemed easier before, but now it's hard. God, what are you trying to tell me? God's trying to tell you it's time to move. Get up out of that wilderness. That's not where you're supposed to be living.
Within you is peace or chaos. Now, this isn't a question. What I'm suggesting to you right now is that within you is peace or chaos. You know, when I was younger, in the military, I was stationed in the Far East. I was given orders that I was to report for duty in Japan. And I was excited because I'd seen all the pictures of the cherry blossoms, the girls walking around in their kimonos. I mean, Japan was so exciting to me, just from the movies. But you know, as I began to talk to people, it turned out that I was going to a place called Misawa, which was in the mountainous region of Japan, with the snow. and it wasn't that picture of Japan that I had pictured, you know, in all the movies that I had seen. I kind of figured that out when they were issuing me uniforms for my new duty assignment, and one of the uniforms they were issuing was a parka. I'm like, parka, what's this for? You're going into northern Japan. You know, I began to talk to people who had been to Japan, and many people who had been to that place where I was going, and they were all negative about it. It's a terrible place. It's up in the mountains. It's no fun. You're going to be miserable. It's horrible. And just about everybody that I spoke with had negative things to say about this duty station that I was soon to be a part of. But you know what's very interesting? When I got there, you know what I found? I had the best time of my life. I couldn't believe it. All the negative that folks had been feeding me, it wasn't true, or at least as far as I experienced. And what I learned from that experience at such a young age is that you can run, but you can't hide. and what I mean by that is it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter where you go, how far you go away from where you are, because where you are is miserable and all. Chances are you're going to take that misery with you. And the reason is because peace or chaos is within you. So if you're thinking, oh, this place I'm living, it's so boring, it's so dismal, it's no fun, it's not exciting at all, I'm going to go all the way to this state or all the way to this country, some other place, some other job, some other anything, simply to get away from this negativity that I've been experiencing. What I want to suggest to you today is that you can run, but you can't hide. Because wherever you go, you're taking that attitude with you. So your misery, your unhappiness, your boredom with life in the place that you are, it's not the place, it's you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the peace or chaos is within you and how it is we're going to change it. Okay? It's not your conscious thought that is the culprit. So what I'm suggesting is you're taking the negativity with you wherever you go. It's not your conscious thought, okay? What I want to suggest today for this conversation is that we don't have conscious thoughts, or we don't make conscious decisions. That by the time an idea comes to our consciousness, the decision was already made. We are subject to what I call subconscious proddings, subconscious movements, moving to make us respond, to act in a certain way to certain situations and certain things. The attitudes and the mindsets that we have about life and about everything else, it is generated from our subconscious, based on the experiences that we've had throughout our lives, and as well as the environment that we're currently dwelling in. The environment is what our subconscious is responding to, making determinations and how we're going to feel about this and how we're going to feel about that. And so by the time we have a conscious thought, our subconscious has already molded our reality into what it perceives reality to be, okay? And oftentimes that simply isn't reality. And this causes a problem for many folks. For example, why do we have responses to other folks based on prejudice, prejudging? Not simply about race, but we are prejudiced about everything that we experience in life. We prejudge based on our subconscious determination on what that thing or what that situation or what that person or what that place or what that job is all about. We are prejudiced. We are consciously prejudiced because we are moved to feel what we feel, to think what we think by our subconscious proddings. That's why we take drugs and alcohol, because they work on our conscious mind. Drugs and alcohol don't affect your subconscious. Drugs and alcohol affect your conscious thoughts. That's why we can adjust them for a while. Get that buzz, get that high, get drunk, whatever, forget, act crazy, act so far out of your normal self. Because we've affected our conscious thought. But when that buzz wears off, the next morning we're no longer have that alcohol high. We're back into the reality, or back into what is not reality. Because to be honest with you, the drugs and the alcohol give us a reality that is not real. But what I want to suggest to you is that the subconscious proddings that are being ushered to your conscious thought, those are not real either. So I might even suggest that once you get that buzz, you shut off your subconscious responses, sort of, and you are probably functioning in more of a reality than you are when you're not buzzed. Now don't use that as, Martin told you to go ahead and get that buzz. I'm just giving you something to think about, something so that we can positively challenge the thoughts that we have, especially the destructive ones. Okay, we're always wondering, why do I eat so much when I'm already overweight? Why am I addicted to drugs? Why do I hate this person, that person? Why don't I like myself even? Because it doesn't make conscious sense. But it does to us because of our subconscious proddings, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Because we cannot simply allow ourselves to be subject to an environmental effect on our subconscious that may not be reality. You have people that have been abused, maybe from early childhood, that find themselves as abusers now. Now, why would they want to do that? They understand the pain, they understand the hurt, so consciously it is not something that anyone will want to do. What I'm suggesting is their subconscious is moving them to do the things based on what the subconscious has determined is reality. And their conscious thought and action are simply the result. So it's been said that by doctors and neuroscientists, that from the time we see a thing, or even feel a thing, that by the time our senses pick up something and we respond to it, there is a fraction of a second in time that it takes us to sense what we're sensing and then to respond to it. So we don't respond right away, okay? We're always responding after the fact, but a little more after the fact. We're not responding right away. That makes sense. But what I want to suggest is that when our senses pick up something, whether it's a feeling or a taste or a smell or something that we see or hear, that goes through our subconscious first and then responds to our conscious, creating a response or an action. Okay? So it's like our subconscious is a filter that filters everything that we experience and then sends its response to our brain, and we respond based on the response of our subconscious, okay? And sometimes that's not bad, because we're using the analogy of a filter. If you have a clean filter, it's doing its job. But if you have a filthy filter, if you have a filter that is dysfunctional and not working properly, it's not doing its job, and it's feeding dysfunction back into the unit, okay? And that's what we want to look at. I was thinking the other day sort of about this, what do you look like? What do you look like? Do you look good? You ever been somewhere where you see somebody and you're like, geez, why are they coming out looking like that? But they look like they're feeling like they're looking real good and really sharp. What's up with that? A couple things going on. Well, one thing's going on is something is giving them the impression that they look good, right? Subconscious. Let's move to the conscious thought. Man, this is sharp. You look good. But on the other hand, what you're seeing is also being filtered through your subconscious, and your response to them might be jaded simply because of your subconscious effect that it has on your conscious thought. You don't know. So then how do you look? You think you look good? You think you don't? Well, why is that? Let's not worry about if you think you look good. Well, we might want to put that on the burner just in case you don't. But why don't you think you look good? There's a subconscious issue that you have that's prodding your conscious thought to believe that you just don't look good. That's why you have the anorexics, that believe they're fat and they have to keep losing weight, and really they're bone skinny. Why would that be? Because their mind is seeing something. Something has prompted the subconscious to send a message to the consciousness that they're overweight. Okay? That's problematic. And so there are folks that... So it's what you truly believe is given to you by your subconscious. And so we are really victims to our subconscious because we really don't know what to believe. But we want to believe what's true. We want to be healthy. We want to be well. We want to be able to raise our children to be well. And so it's important for us to see truth, to recognize what is, what isn't. And if there's something that needs to be improved, I have to see that it needs to be improved in order to put my hand to improving it, okay? And if there's something that needs to be rid of, I have to see that it needs to be rid of in order for me to take the steps to rid myself of it, okay? And so, now this takes a lot of soul searching. This takes some real honesty within oneself, and it's kind of difficult sometimes. Because we do spend an inordinate amount of time judging other people, the way they are, other people and other things and everything else about us, our husbands, our wives, our kids, or whatever. But we don't spend that much constructive time judging ourselves because we think we already know, honestly. And what I'm suggesting is that we don't. And what I'm also suggesting is that we are the catalyst to how we view the world, how I view myself. If I view myself honestly, if I view myself as I truly am, I am able to see the world as the world truly is. But if I am judging the world through jaded eyes, my own jaded eyes, which can't even see myself, how can I trust what I'm seeing out there? We see that with the politicians all the time, because half the time we see them talking, we'll be like, how can they possibly honestly believe that? Well, guess what? Maybe they do. Because they're being moved by their subconscious proddings as well. Now, there are a couple of ways I think we might want to consider that we're being manipulated by ourselves, okay, and by other folks who understand this. You've heard if you tell a lie enough times or hear a lie enough times, eventually you'll begin to believe it. Why? Because your subconscious has bought into that lie. And once your subconscious has bought into it, it's very difficult for that thing to change. You've seen it in the political realm. Now, I'm not going to be naming any sides. I think you see it on both sides. Whenever you have fanatics on either side of any particular political issue, you have somebody, and they really believe it. You have somebody that's been manipulated, usually by others, but to their subconscious, which is convinced their conscious this is simply the way that is, okay? And so listening to something over and over again will begin to influence your subconscious. That's why the religious people pray. You know, I think the Muslims pray like 5 times a day, right? And the Christians are to pray without ceasing, you know. Well, there's a reason behind that. Because the more you pray, or even the secular, the Buddhist, the meditation and all, the more you meditate, you are addressing and adjusting the environment from which your subconscious is making its determinations, okay? And so listening to positive music over and over again versus listening to negative music over and over again. You know, as much as I might like the sound of rap, see, I'm a musician. Okay, at least I was for many years of my life. Played a saxophone primarily. And so I like music, all different kinds of music, okay? And there are sometimes I'll be listening to music like some of their hard rap music, and I'm not really listening to the words. I'm listening to even the words as if they were musical instruments. And when my kids were younger, I'd be listening to something and enjoying it, some music, and my kids would say, "Dad, you really don't want to be listening to that." And then I listen closely to the words, and I'm like, "Oops, yeah, you know, you're right." But you know, if we're listening to words over and over and over and over and over again, and they're destructive, guess what? We're going to become destructive. And this isn't singling out any type of particular music, you know, a genre of music, because there's rough music, you know, in many areas. So it's not really ethnicity or race specific, okay? Just negativities over and over and over again. And so a lot of the politicians have figured that out, so they'll feed their constituents over and over again particular ideology, creating enemies, creating heroes over and over and over again until eventually we begin to believe it. And with the internet, with a 24-hour news cycle, and you focus in on whatever news, you know, organization brings you, you know, what you want to hear, and you hear what they say over and over and over again. It doesn't matter if it's not true. Your subconscious eventually is going to buy into it, because that's the environment we've created for our subconscious. And that's what we're going to consciously believe, and we're going to respond and act on it. You saw those folks on January 6th, man, climbing the Capitol walls. Now, who would do that? And if you look at them, if you ask them, you know, after they got caught, after they went to trial, after they saw the judge, after they got sentenced, they're crying and crying, not understanding why. I can't even believe I did this. I threw away my family. I threw away my business. I threw away everything, my livelihood. And they come to their senses. Their conscience is realizing they were taking on this trip, motivated by their subconscious, okay? And that is simply the way we are. I remember coming up when I was in junior high school, mandatory reading was a book called The Hidden Persuaders by a gentleman named Vance Packard. And it was all about how we were being influenced by marketers, by tricky marketers to get us to buy particular products. I think one of the tricks, as I recall from the book, was, you know, we were sitting in movie theaters, and they would actually do this. They would have like a fraction of a second where they'd show popcorn, you know, real, you know, delicious looking popcorn or something to drink or other kinds of food that the theater would offer. Not long enough for you to consciously recognize what you're seeing, but enough time for it to be logged in your memory banks, and your subconscious was responding to it. And it wasn't long after seeing that, a couple of those, that all of a sudden the individual would get hungry and they got the snack area buying food. Okay, it's a reality. So from all this, it might seem, oh man, woe is me, all is lost. What am I going to do if I'm simply a victim to my subconscious and I don't even know, you know, what's right or what's wrong? Okay. So what I'm suggesting today is there's a remedy. Because for real, I wouldn't even have brought this up if I didn't have a remedy. Okay. What would be the point? You know, just to depress us? No, there is an answer. And I want to make it as simple as possible in the short time that we have here, is that we need to begin to consciously figure out how to affect our subconscious So then what the subconscious prods us to will be positive. So in other words, I'm saying we are victim to our subconscious. So I'm saying our consciousness, we need to consciously decide how we can affect the environment that will impress upon the subconscious to begin relaying us information, messages, and feelings that we want to be feeling, the ones that are healthy. Okay, let me give you a quick, simple example. Okay, I'll be 65 this year, 2023. And you know, I have a clean face and fresh haircut and all. I just cut my hair and shaved this morning. I cut my hair and I shave every week. You want to know why? Because if I let this beard grow, it'd be white. If I just let my hair grow out, it would be white. And see, I had an afro and a beard years ago, even 15, 20 years ago, before there was any white. I always wore a beard. But you know, now I recognize that I'm energetic. I'm pretty healthy. I try to eat right. I try to exercise. I try to do the things that I'm supposed to do. But because I look at myself in the mirror every day and I see this guy that doesn't look as old as society would say that I am, 65, right? Every day. Now, if I had a white beard, looking like Santa Claus or whatever, I had white afro, growing out there, and I'm looking at that every day, eventually I would begin buying into what I see. See, that is the senses, that's the environment, that's what your subconscious responds to. So my subconscious would be responding to this old face that I see every day in the mirror, and eventually I'd be taking up characteristics of that old person that I would see in the mirror every day, simply because my subconscious would determine that I am old. And will be sending old messages to my conscious that I should be reacting and I should be responding to this way. So what I have done is recognizing that my subconscious responds to the environment, my face in the mirror, that I'm going to affect the environment to reflect what I want my subconscious to see. And then my subconscious is going to be in turn prodding my conscious to be energetic. I'm still working. I'm still working. And I have a pretty good job, pretty good physical job. Not terribly physical, but it's enough in addition to my workout. And so I come to work every day and I still talk to people for a couple hours, and then I work for a few hours and I close out, make good money, don't really have to harm myself physically. And people are always saying, I'm like the oldest person where I work. And I say, when are you going to retire? When are you going to retire? I'm like, why would I do that? So I can just sit around and slowly start to die. Because whenever I'm at work, wherever I go, people are, I can't believe you're that old. You are so young. You're so young. I hear all that all the time. And guess what? My subconscious is receiving that. And it's validating that in my conscious thought, and this is who I am. But what happens? What do you do? What do people do when they retire? That's the next stage on the way to death. And what happens when you retire, you're not as diligent about taking care of yourself as you were while you were working. At least I'm not. And you buy into, this is who I'm supposed to be. Often the image that we buy into, that which our subconscious moves our conscious to embrace, is what, we're talking about age and all, is what we witnessed from our parents and from our grandparents. We were with them when they were younger. We were with them as they got old. We were with them when they were old. We were with them when they died. Our grandparents the same. So in our mind, when you're this age, when you're 65, you're supposed to be looking like this. You're supposed to be acting like this. You're supposed to be walking up. You're certainly not supposed to be doing 80 push-ups every morning and then working out. That's our subconscious, moving our conscious to believe something that we are. So when people tell me, you are young for your age, I don't believe I'm young for my age. I believe I'm exactly what I'm supposed to be. And there are too many folks that are too old for their age. Our parents were too old for their age because they were responding to what their parents were about. And their parents, and so on and so on. What I'm suggesting to you is we are allowing our subconscious to sell us short. We need to be recognizing what we wish to be and what we choose to be. Because you can be whatever you want to be within reason. reason. But you need to begin affecting the environment that your subconscious is going to be responding to and then sending message to your conscious thought. Man, I'm telling you, I'm very, very comfortable in life. Everything I put my hand to do has been successful. Everything. As some of you know, when I was 50 years old, I decided to go to school, go to college. I had a high school diploma, but I was making good money. I was comfortable, nice neighborhood. Kids are all halfway sane and everything. They're all good. But I saw Obama became president. That was on my 50th birthday, November 11th, when Obama won his first election. And I'm really not political, but what I saw a young brother. He was younger than me. He had a Harvard education. He was a Harvard law professor. He was an attorney. He was a senator in Chicago, and now he was president of the United States, younger than me, and all I had was a high school diploma. I decided just to go to college, just to get an associate degree, just so I could feel like I have a degree, like so many others. And guess what? 10 years later, I earned my MBA. When I was 60, I earned my MBA. Who would do that? Who could do that? Anyone. So at age 63, about maybe a week before my 63rd birthday, my daughter was planning on going to a trip with her classmates in a couple of months to the Caribbean. And she wanted to have they were going to be living on a boat for 2 weeks, and she wanted to have her scuba certification. And well, I always take off for my birth week, and that was my birthday week as well. So I just took off, and sure, I'll take you to class. Well, as it turned out, she needed a dive partner. I'm off. I volunteered. I was a little bit nervous, a little bit taken back because I am, I was going to be 63, but I'm in pretty good health because this is who I've been cutting my hair, I've been shaving, I've been seeing myself as energetic, I've been working out, I've been exercising. I was able to take those scuba classes with my daughter and go scuba diving. Now I'm a scuba diver. At 63 years old, that was 2 years ago. What am I going to do next? I started studying Spanish to speak Spanish fluently. There is no limitation to what you can do. But you have to believe. But you can't believe up here if you don't believe down here. You are going to manifest what you believe in your subconscious. It's going to prod your conscious thought. Your relationships might simply be jacked up because of issues that you've been carrying with you from childhood. What do you want to see? That's what you need to do. There's a thing, and my wife used to do this, and I had never done this. I had never even heard of it before, but she was really into vision boards. Some of you know what vision boards are. Or maybe at the beginning of the year, at the end of a year for the next year, you give a poster board and take pictures of everything you want to accomplish and glue them to that vision board. Now, there's nothing magical about that. But what's going to happen if you look at it every day, eventually you're going to believe it. And that's what's going to happen. Same concept. You've changed your environment, your senses, what you happen to be looking at, every day, manifest. Look, I had a abdominal injury, maybe about 10 or 11, maybe 9 years ago or so. Terrible abdominal injury. Some medical people thought I had a hernia or a double hernia. Oh, well, I'm one of those stubborn men, right? No, I'm a stubborn man, right, but within reason. I feel that if I can fix myself, I'm not going to the doctor, okay? But if I can't, I will. So what did I do? First, I was sitting around, I was going to the internet, I was trying to find anything, because I didn't know what was wrong with me. Maybe a tea, or maybe some kind of food, or maybe, what I was coming up negative. Then I was sitting one night, I was watching TV. I was looking like Al Bundy. My abdomen was hurt. I had my hand in my pants, and I was on my stomach, just kind of doing. And this infomercial came on with this thing they called a power kata. And it was a martial art thing. They had all these martial art moves, what we used to call a kata back in the day, but it was high powered. It was like you're working out in a karate classroom. You have an instructor in front, and about 6 other people you're working with, and you go through all these kicks and punches that I already knew for 40 minutes, and it's actually a cardio workout. wasn't Billy Blank's. It was just Les Mills, I think it was called. And so, man, I was looking at these and I could do all that, but my abdomen is kind of hurting. But I figured I could do all those punches, I could do all those kicks, and it turned out it was about 1,000 punches and 900 kicks in 40 minutes. And because I counted it one day. I figured I could do that. And so that's what I did. So that's what, even though I had this pain, so anytime I would get to something where it would hurt the pain, I just wouldn't do that, or I'd do it real low or real soft. But as well, there's something else. Every day, after my shower, I'd look in the mirror, I'd be putting lotion on, but I'd get to my abdomen, and I would say, I am well, I am well, I am well, I am well, or wellness or something, or healed. I don't remember the exact words I used, but every day I did that while I'm still working out. So what I'm doing is I'm changing the environment. So consciously, I've determined, even though I'm hurting, I'm going to work out. Most people with the problem I had would not be doing what I was doing. But see, because consciously, you're going to respond to your subconscious. You can't do that. I was determined to change my environment. So I was working out. Every day I was doing that workout. Every day I was doing that workout. Not only that, my daughter, I can tell you how many years ago, my daughter was in the 2nd grade. Okay, so it was about 11 years ago. And she had been practicing karate since kindergarten. And in the 2nd grade, she wanted to quit practicing karate and run track. And the only thing is, for her to run track, she had to be able to run a mile. And she couldn't run a mile. She was a little chubby thing at the time, okay? She's really together now. So I just, even though I was hurting, but that's my little girl. So I said, look, honey, what I'm going to do with you, we're going to go to the track every day. And first we're going to start walking. And then we're going to speed it up. Then we're going to walk some and run some, walk some and run some. Eventually we're going to be running that mile. But we're going to do a mile every day. But eventually we're going to be running it. And I promised her that I wasn't going to shave until I was able to run that mile with her. Both of us were able to run that mile. And yet, lo and behold, in about 7 months, we were running that mile. But guess what? At the same time, I was going through this abdominal issue. And every morning I was in front of the mirror saying, I'm well, I'm well, I'm well. And to the point where I really wasn't even realizing I was saying it. It was just habit that I was just doing every morning. And I was a mailman in the inner city. And there were time constraints on us. So I told them I would only work 8 hours a day, but it was going to take me 10. But I wasn't going to charge you. I'll just say I took a 2.5-hour lunch. I did that the whole time. So I kept working. I could have taken off sick. I could have not put that lotion on that morning and said you were well, you were well, you're well. I could have not done that 40-minute martial art cardio, which was somewhat painful. I could have not walked and trotted and then run with my daughter that mile. But no, I had these things I had to do, and that was the environment that I created. That was the environment that affected my subconscious, influenced my subconscious, that I must be well if I'm running a mile, that I must be well because I'm believing I'm well, that I must be well because I'm going to work, that I must be well because I'm doing a 40-minute martial art cardio every day. About 7 or 8 months, I was well 100%. I mean, it was a struggle from time to time. Don't get me wrong. But I was well, no hospital, no doctor. That was about 11 years ago, and I'm still doing that 40-minute cardio every day, except I've added 80 push-ups in the morning, 480 moves with a martial art wooden dummy, and as well as 60 ab exercises, and then my 40-minute cardio. I'll be 65 this year. But you know what else I do? I couple that with eating healthy. I eat healthy from the time I get up in the morning till the time I get off of work. That's 95% of my food intake. Totally healthy, 100% healthy, nothing else but healthy from the time I get up in the morning till the time I get off of work. So that also is an environment that my subconscious is buying into. I'm eating healthy every day. I'm eating healthy every day. So what does that mean? I must be healthy. I must be well. I must be strong. Convincing my conscious that I am strong, that I am well. At the same time, I'm shaving and cutting my hair. It doesn't just happen. Your environment is very influential in whatever you are. Look at some of the tore up neighborhoods in our society, some of the inner cities that are really tore up financially, drugs, gang violence. Go to Appalachia, look at all the drug use, the Oxycontin, the unemployment, the just failed lives. I mean, all over our planet there are negativities simply because of self-perception. We begin living what we perceive ourselves to be, especially after a long period of time. We can change that. But that change has to be intentional. You have to be intentional about changing the environment. The environment will affect your subconscious. Your subconscious will affirm your conscious to positive things, and you will do positive. You will do great things. There is no limit. I'm here to tell you. And I'm not just preaching theory now. I'm telling you what I know. Because what has worked, and it has worked for me. And the best part about it is the environment you create for your kids is what's going to affect them in life. Man, my wife and I purchased a home when my daughter was 4. That was beyond us. It was beyond us. But it was large and a nice neighborhood, and people around us are like real wealthy professionals and all that stuff, and us just working people. Why? Because we wanted our daughter to grow up thinking this was normal. We honed this environment for her so that she would grow up believing this was normal. We had her at a private school, which was very expensive. And her friends were like, their parents were like both doctors and lawyers and all this stuff. And we were just working people. Why? Because I wanted that to be normal. I wanted that to be the environment that was affecting the subconscious of my daughter. This is what she would expect. See, so that's why it's very important for us is if we're parents or before we're parents, if we're thinking about being parents or whatever, to get a hold of this. Not only to change your environment, to change your subconscious, to change your conscious thought and reaction, but as well to begin to hone and shape the environment that you want your children to grow up to be influenced by. It's very important. That's what they say as well, man. I guess we're going all over, but this is very important. For not just for ourselves, but for the little young minds and little young eyes that are watching us. Because they're not going to respond based on what we tell them. They're going to be responding based on what they experience because of their subconscious. That's what they say. We say, don't do as I do as I say. That isn't going to work. They're going to be just like you. Why? Because their subconscious is buying into you. Now, they may totally reject you. Their subconscious may be realizing how destructive your life is. I don't want to be married if that's what a marriage is. Or I want to be. That's why it's important for me as a dad with a young girl growing up that I responded to her as I would expect the young man that she would choose one day to be responding to her. So I made myself the man that I would want her to choose one day. For my son, I made myself the man I would hope that I would influence him to be one day, to be good. I wouldn't always, I'm Martin. my kids never knew me when I was Marty. Okay, I had this epiphany, this revelation when I was 28. My son was born when I was 30. My daughter was born when I was 47. They don't know Marty. Marty was in a very dysfunctional, destructive environment, and I am so glad they never got a chance to be a part of that environment. Parents, you have the opportunity. Clean up your act. Look around. I think what we have to do is just try. It's very difficult to determine that something is wrong with me, okay? I remember I used to speak to the young people at juvenile detention. I did that for 17 years. And no matter what you feel about children being born out of wedlock, it is statistically better for a child to be born into a home where there is a husband and a wife, a mother and a father living together and treating them right, of course. And so I would try to express that to these young people, that it's very important not to have children at your age because it's not good. But then a child is sitting there who was born out of wedlock, who was born into a single parent home, and am I telling him something that's making his existence dysfunctional? You can't fathom that. You can't fathom that. Now, what you can fathom is what you determine to challenge yourself to be. Okay, I would tell them sometimes, sometimes you got to step outside of yourself and look at yourself and ask yourself, is this what life is supposed to be? That's the most difficult thing in the world. And when I was speaking to those kids that were locked up, man, they'd be coming in there, single file, 30, 40 of them, little orange jumpsuits, sitting in the gymnasium on these folding chairs. And I would have to take the first 20 minutes to try to express to them that there is something wrong with the life that they were living. Now, you and I would think, man, they're locked up, they're in jail. Wouldn't they know? But no. It's the most difficult thing in the world because their conscience is bought into what the subconscious has expressed to them to be. I remember a long time ago, before I was married, I had an unpaid driving ticket. I think I got a speeding ticket or something, and I had moved. I hadn't gotten the notices. I don't know, whatever, but I didn't pay for it. It had been over a year, and this police officer drove by and got my license number down and ran it. Turned out there was a warrant out. This was over 30 years ago. Okay. So they came and they arrested me and took me to the county jail. And we're sitting in a bunch of guys who were I was waiting for somebody to come and bail me out. And we're in a little day room watching TV. Very interesting environment. I mean, I was in the military years ago. It was like a military day room, but we're all here watching TV. All of a sudden there was like a lockdown. Something happened and I don't know, the buzzer went off and they shuffled us all out of the day room into these little cells, okay? Maybe 8 to a cell until the emergency was over. And while I was sitting in there, it was very interesting. The guy started talking. Like, what are you in here for? What are you in here for? There's a guy, he'd been in Lebanon Correctional Institute maybe 8 years. Another guy had been at Chillicothe for 5. Another guy had been here for 3 years. They were all given, it was like badges of honor. Then he came to me, what are you in here for? I said, traffic. It wasn't all that. But it was like they were looking at these guys and they were honoring them based on how much time they had locked up in institutions. That was their ranking system. And so why wouldn't you think that the guy who was less locked up would be the hero? But no, the guy that was most locked up was the hero. Why? Because that was the environment that they were used to. That's what their subconscious had bought into, and that's what their subconscious had convinced their conscious thought. What I'm suggesting is it's very difficult to begin to challenge yourself, but you have to. I have no problem doing that. But I would suggest, like for me, for example, I love to go to the grocery store, grocery shopping. That's my thing. That's my therapy, I guess. Every day, just about. I don't buy a whole bunch of stuff most of the time. But I always stop in the magazine section. And I always go through the magazines, the martial art magazines, the runners magazines, mindfulness, yoga, anything, the self-help magazines, whatever. And if I can just find one article, in any of those magazines, I'll buy the magazine. And so I'm always in a place where I'm trying to recognize what I could be. I spent 26 years as a walking mailman in the inner city, but I was always double-timed. That was in that time I was, being healthy, so I was double-timing my route. I was a good employee. I was always making good time. So when I would go into and I was double-timing it. When I would look for magazines, I'd look for Runners magazine. And I would be doing buying the things that the runners buy, the attitudes that the runners have, because I was seeing myself as a runner. Although I wasn't running, I was just walking real fast, but I had envisioned myself as a runner, and that was the environment that I had created for myself. That was the environment my subconscious bought into. That was who I became. And it wasn't long after that, it was long after that, I went into management. But before I went into management, they wanted to look at my record, see what kind of employee I was, and they were very impressed. But I wasn't doing it for the company. I was doing it because I had bought into the fact that I was healthy, and this was all part of the environment that I had created. So that's what I'm giving you. I'm giving you homework today. If you're listening to destructive music, degrading music to people, to women, to anything, to yourselves, any music that's destructive or hateful or any of that stuff, shut it off. You're creating your environment. Begin to have positive stuff. Man, I have Navajo healing music. I have jazz, a lot of jazz. I have music that is in different languages, in Spanish and in French and in Japanese and some Tibetan music. Why? Because it's calming. And if I don't know the words, the words are just like another instrument to me. So I constantly create environments as well, audiobooks of positive things, of learning, of insight and understanding. And I'm constantly creating environments. I have a room in my house that's a plant room that has plants in it and has classical music playing, and it's a room of peace. I have environments that I create all the time, simply because I'm influencing my subconscious, and that influence is going to be prodding my conscious to be a better person. I'm just telling you. And so I think I've given you enough now to where you can begin to look at your own life and determine what things you need to cut out and what things you need to add on. Special messages, certain songs. There's an encouraging song. I think it's a religious song, a Christian song. This girl, it's called Evidence by Naomi Rain. And she's just affirming that things are going to be working for her as they did before. They're going to continue working for her. Man, and I listen to that song probably 10 or 12 times a day, to the point where I'm not even consciously thinking about it, but it's affirming to me that I am well, just like I was well then, I am well now, and I will be well. Little things like that. So these are the things I do for me, but consider for yourself the things you need to cut out, the things you need to add on. Even as you begin eating right, eating healthy, you're convincing your subconscious, hey, I'm healthy. I remember sharing with a person once, a very overweight person, about the foods that I eat, every day, for that time in the morning when I get up until I get off of work. And she was struggling terribly with depression and with not feeling like she wanted to be, and their weight issues and all that. And I said, there, just do this, forever. Change your diet. Then you can tweak it to your own likes and everything. She goes, I can't, because that's just too boring. So the answer to her issue was too boring. From her conscious thought, this was the answer to the thing that had plagued her for most of her life. It was the answer. But in her conscious mind, she's saying, that's boring. Where do you think that came from? You know it. The subconscious. So it's time to take hold of this thing, man. I am positive that whatever you want to accomplish in your life, you can. Change your environment to be conducive to that thing that you wish to accomplish. To the point where you don't say, well, I'm going to do this for 3 months, or I'm going to do this until I get that. No, change your lifestyle forever. This is who I am now. I'm telling you, man. The sky, there is no limit. Marinate on that. It seems that most folks are not happy with their type of employment. Miserable. And often that creates a really negative work environment. And one thing about negative, toxic work environments, it's contagious. And so we're going to talk about the contentment in your employment. And if it's just not the place you're supposed to be, how do you move on? Sometimes we get a feeling of stuck. I remember I was in corporate America for about 13 years. NCR, inventory management. 3-piece suit, trench coat, briefcase, that whole 9 yards. And it looked good from the outside. And it was really impressive to a lot of people. But I was miserable. I didn't want to be there. And so I can empathize with that. What's very interesting about jobs is that when we went to apply for the job, when we went to get a job, get the job, and we were being considered for it, we were really excited and thrilled when we were selected. But in time, we realized that things are not always what they seem to be from the start. We find ourselves getting discouraged in negative situations. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Because really the key to this program, the key to this series of programs is to find contentment, in life. And oftentimes, as we discussed last time, there is a discontentment within us. And so that no matter where we go, no matter what job we move on to, or what place we move to, or even what person we end up moving to, we find ourselves, discontent. So sort of like the old thing about falling in love, loving the idea of falling in love. But then in time having to be faced with the stark reality that there was really nothing there at all, okay? And we do that with our jobs sometimes, okay? And so it's very important to recognize if we're not satisfied, to be somewhere for years and years and years not satisfied is a terrible thing. So we're going to discuss two aspects of this thing. The one briefly is that discontentment within ourselves, because we already covered that topic. But it's very important to be able to challenge ourselves to determine, is it me or is it you, right? And so one of the best ways, I think, to come to a conclusion, a proper conclusion, is to look around at your coworkers, okay? Are they just as miserable as you are? Was that toxic environment created before you got there and you stepped into it, or are you part of the creation of that toxic environment, okay? It's very important. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to spend our lives moving from job to job searching for that happiness when really we're dragging the unhappiness, the discontentment along with us. So that's very important. How do you look at situations in your life? Are they half full or half empty? Remember, I worked with this company for years that had an overtime list, where if you wanted to work overtime, you signed up for the list. If you didn't want to work overtime, you weren't on that list. But there were times when the situation would be such that even if you didn't want overtime, they'd compel you to work overtime because of the need, or the times when you wanted to work overtime and there wasn't a need, you didn't get to work overtime. So for me, in those situations, I always looked at it. If they were forcing me to come in and work overtime, great, I got to make more money for that next payday. But if they didn't need me to come in to work overtime, great, I get to go home. I get to be off of work. So no matter what happened, I was always content, okay? And so we have to begin to look at life that way, especially in our places of employment. Look for the positive things. I mean, I knew people that if they were asked to come in, they were mad because they wanted to go home. But if they weren't allowed to come into work overtime, they were mad because they didn't get to make that extra money. So no matter what the situation was presented before them, they'd always be negative. They would always be discontent. And so when we're trying to find our place of wellness, we have to recognize, is it me or is it you? Okay, is the glass half full or is it half empty? It's the same glass. The same amount of water in that glass. To me, it's half full. To others, it would be half empty. And it's all the same amount. It's a matter of perspective. So what I'm suggesting today, a lot of our discontentment, a lot of our unhappiness is simply a particular perspective that, for whatever reason, we've chosen to embody. Okay? It's very important. I remember years ago, my daughter, who's in college now, but when she was about 5 years old, she was a little fudgy little thing, real cute. I'm dad, right? And we were going to Bob Evans to get some lunch or breakfast or something, lunch. And I was trying to watch her weight. And I said to her, we're going to go in there. She loved mashed potatoes. I said, we're going to go in there, but you can't have any mashed potatoes today. And she got so upset. She started crying and crying and crying. It was just me and her that day. So I got down, she was by the passenger door, I got down on my knee and I talked to her. I said, look, honey, give me your hand. She gives me her hand while she's crying. I said, look, these are all the things you can have. You can have green beans, she loved green beans. You can have a biscuit. You can have all the things that she could have. It turned out there were 5 things that were going to be on her plate that she liked that she could have. She's looking at that hand. I said, now give me your other hand. There's only one thing you can't have, and that's mashed potatoes. Now look at how many things you can have. And look how many things you can't have. And immediately, she was happy. Because instead of focusing on the one thing that she couldn't have, I got her focused to look at all the things she did have, okay? And she realized it at 5 years old, and she was totally content. We need to be content as that simple understanding of a child. Rather than look at the things we can't have, look at that it's half empty. We need to look at all the things that we have. How many things that have made us well, and is life really that bad? And so what I'm suggesting is when we look at our job, the job that we really wanted, the job that we were asking for, begging for, we were so thrilled when we got it, why is it so terrible now? And oftentimes it's really not. The job really hasn't changed. We have, okay? And so it's very, very good sometimes to sit down on our knee and look at our hand and look at how many things we do have and how many things we don't have. We're getting that paycheck every other week. Is it enough? Is it? So it may be enough, and you're thrilled on payday. But the rest of the week, why is it you're not happy? Is it you? Now that's the one side, because we do have to challenge that. Challenge ourselves. Is it me? Can I be better? What kind of employee am I? Does everybody like me? Does everybody hate me? Am I mean? I remember this one guy where I worked. He was just a negative and a mean person, just mean to everybody. And he almost took pride in that. He said, I don't like anybody. But there came time in his life at that place of employment where he needed a favor from the upper management. And most people, they would have done that simple favor for. But to him, they just cut him off at the knees, I don't have to help you, so I'm not. So what kind of person are you? Are you an example to others of a positive mindset? And sometimes you have to get your mind off of, sometimes you have to trick yourself psychologically. And this is what we're talking about today, because we want to find contentment in our place of employment. On the other hand, it might be time to move on, but we're still trying to find contentment in our place of employment. How do you look at your function? I think the question is, are you making enough money to satisfy the situation in your life situation? And so you might need to adjust your lifestyle just a bit. I remember this particular company when I started like 29 years ago. They were like just throwing money at us. And people, you're working all the overtime you wanted, making all this money, and people had boats, people had nice homes, they had all this stuff. But the caveat, the warning, the signs were everywhere that, eventually this company was going to wise up and find ways to cut their expenses. And it'd be a good idea now, while the going is good, to begin to curtail some of the commitments, some of the financial commitments that have been made. Cut back a little bit. Begin weaning yourself off of the necessity to be living off of overtime. And that's what I did. But many folks didn't do that. And then when the company finally did wise up, these guys were stuck out there with these tremendous expenses and no way to make the payments. And that was a terrible place to be. So oftentimes there is some wisdom attached to recognize that every good thing does not last forever. And that sometimes, like that little squirrel that buries those nuts, when the weather is good, recognizing that winter is coming, okay? And there are times where with companies that management is kind of harsh. Management is kind of difficult. Your boss might seem harsh. Your boss might seem unfair, giving you a hard time, right? So you have to find ways to psychologically deal with that, okay? So I was with a company that was really focused on time and production, like most companies are, okay? And so there were particular constraints that would be given to you and particular objectives that needed to be met. And sometimes they seemed unfair. So what would I do? I would better the times that I was given. And so, in effect, I wasn't struggling to meet their time. I wasn't even irritated that they had given me a time that I might not agree with. I had taken the power out of their hands and set my own goals and met my own goals, okay, which were better than theirs at times. And so what I'm trying to share with you, somehow you have to take the authority away from them if they're abusers of authority and just place it on yourself. And this was just my game, my competition against myself that I was playing every day, you see. And to beat my previous time or to do better than I had done before. It was no longer on them, okay? And so there are little tricks we have to play on ourselves because a lot of the issues that we have that make our time miserable is the mental feeling that we're having that is very negative about a place of employment. And sometimes it's not us. Sometimes it is the boss. So there is a way to take that power out of their hands by doing better than what they ask you to do. So they may not be impressed with what you've done because it has taken the power away from them to come harsh on you to make you do what they want you to do. And so that's just a little side note, a little tidbit. Okay, so now what are we going to do if it's just time to leave? Okay. it is time to leave sometimes. I left that company. I left NCR after 13 years. We've been taken over by another company, AT&T, and we were given the opportunity to stay and fight over other positions. You know, I was vying for the same position my boss was vying for, so that really wasn't going to fly, especially if I needed a recommendation. All right? But I didn't like that job anyway. I was still doing it. I thought I was going to retire from there, but when that opportunity came, you know, it took me a minute to think about it, but about a week into it, I just took the buyout. I even signed a little document saying, hey, I'll never sue you again. They gave me an extra $5,000 just to promise I wouldn't sue them. I wasn't trying to come back there. And so I left that company with enough money in hand, about 6 months worth of money to cover my expenses. And that was not applying for unemployment. So that was still on the back burner. So I could leave that company. And financially, I knew I was well enough to give me time to find another place of employment, okay? A lot of times folks just get mad and quit. Don't do that. What are you going to do for money? No, the time's going to come. You know, the time is going to come for you to make a move, but if you had cut your expenses, if you lived within your means, you know, from your paycheck, and you weren't simply living from paycheck to paycheck, and you had something, an ability to maintain your sustenance while you were searching for another job, you could leave. And so that's what I did. You know, when I left, people were telling me I was crazy. My coworkers, they couldn't believe I was just leaving voluntarily like that. But I hated that job. And I knew that it was time to go. Now, I want to give you another caveat, another warning. Drugs and alcohol, wrong thing to do for two reasons. One thing, it's an expense. It's an expense that is just too much on your financial spreadsheet. So if you're trying to save money or maintain money, you're just blowing money on a temporary buzz that's going to be gone not too much long later. So just if you're a drug user or an alcohol user, and that is going out at night, partying and all that stuff, which is what I was doing for many years, make a little spreadsheet and begin to log on that spreadsheet how much money you spend. And you're going to find there's a significant amount of your money you're spending, and that might be part of your negative attitude at your workplace or not. Maybe it's time for you to leave. But start saving that money. That's part of the process. That's part of making the way so you can escape. You know, you have to plan your escape. And part of that planning is financial, okay? And so stop that drug use, stop that alcohol use, save that money. Won't be buying a lot of those junk food bunchies either. Won't be going out to those clubs every night, just blowing so much more money on even the alcohol that it would cost. You know, you're paying, you know, a proprietor extra money just to be in their place. And you're buying drinks, you're giving tips, and it's just too much money, too much money. So cut that out. And then you're going to find that when it's time to leave, you're going to have enough money. But that buzz, that alcohol, and that weed or whatever it is you're doing is going to be convoluting your thinking. Because we're talking about now we've transcended from the place where we found a way to be that just having a good mindset or doing the right thing at work isn't enough. You still want to leave, you know, maybe to progress, maybe to move up the ladder, whatever it is. But so now what do we do after we leave? A lot of times we just chill. You know, we got a little money in our pocket, right? Because we saved up some money. We have enough money to leave, maybe 6 months, 7 months, a year, whatever. So we're just chilling. We're continuing. Then we might pick up the little party, and maybe I'll buy a little weed. Maybe I'll go out tonight. Maybe I'll go out this night. Maybe I'll go to this restaurant. Whatever. Spending that money. That's supposed to be your foundation, your cushion until you find another job. So that's not good. And that buzz isn't going to keep you thinking right. Let me tell you what I did. When you leave a company like that, when you leave your job, I mean, my job, I had to be at work every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. So you get up around 6:30, whatever time it was, to prepare yourself. Maybe have some breakfast, read the newspaper, do whatever you do, show up for work, do a good day's work, and then go home. Well, when you leave a company, when you're no longer employed because you left and you're looking for another job, you still have a job. Your job is to find a job. And that's every day. That's a 5-day week. So, you know, you could do 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, but I just used, you know, for a template, you know, what I was doing when I was going to work at that job. So every morning I'd still get up at 6:30 in the morning. I'd still get up and have breakfast. I'd get myself already shaved, take care of my business, put a tie on even back in those days. Go and read the newspaper, and then spend the day looking for a job, going here, going there, looking for jobs. That was my job. Once you leave a particular place of employment and you want another job or a better job, you don't have the luxury of not doing anything. You're not on vacation. You have a new job until you get a job, and that job is to find a job, and that's at least a 5-day a week function. Get up at the same time you were getting up before, get cleaned up, put on a shirt and a tie or whatever. For nowadays, I guess it's not a tie, but just get cleaned up looking good, and then go out looking for jobs, company. In the mornings when I was working, I'd just be reading the newspaper, just reading the articles in the newspaper, reading the obituaries to see if somebody I knew had kicked off, But now I'm into the want ads. Now I'm looking at the places that were hiring, that were needing employees. And that's what I would focus on. Every day, that was my job. That needs to be your job. That's where many of us fail. You're not on vacation when you leave your job. You have a new job, and that new job is to find a job. And if you have a buzz, it's not going to work. Because when do you get your buzz? During your waking hours. That's the time you're supposed to be looking for a job. That's the time you're supposed to be coherent. Don't get don't get a buzz at night either, because you may not wake up in the right frame of mind. You don't have the luxury to get high. Now, you were smart enough, hopefully, to drop that buzz, to stop the alcohol, stop the weed, whatever it is you're doing, because you realized you were losing money. But now you're in no place to begin spending that money. It's just too easy, though. It's too tempting to begin feeling like you're on vacation when you've left a job, but you're not. You're really in a foot race. Early on, you don't have to be so anxious, but you're in a foot race. You're trying to get to a particular destination, and your money's running out. Almost like those video games where you got this power that as you go on, it's continually running out, or maybe your cell phone or whatever. You don't have unlimited resources. You don't have time for half-stepping. You have one goal, is to get to that destination before your money runs out. Okay, so you don't have time to get high. You don't have money to get high. Just get it together. Because you need to recognize that there's always going to be competition. There's so much competition in everything that we do today. I know I went in the military in the 70s when I was 17 years old, 1976. And it didn't matter what your grades were in high school. It didn't matter what kind of person you were. The military was always ready to take you. But now, man, they're looking at your grades. They're looking at your life. They're looking at what kind of person you are. They're being selective because there's so much competition out there. Everywhere you go, whether it's jobs, whether there's competition. And so recognize that your function, in order to be above the rest, in order to be ahead, in order to get what somebody else is vying for, you have to be better than them, okay? And so education is a powerful thing as well. Education is very important. And I'll tell you from experience, when I was at NCR, I was functioning in a job that was a degreed position, okay? But the old man, he was from the old days, he was hiring. He looked at me, I was fresh out of the military. He said he believed in me, and he hired me and put me in a position that required a degree, okay? I was there for 13 years. He died, life just goes on. But while I was there, that company was offering to pay for college. So although I got my foot in the door into a job that required a college degree, but I didn't have one because of favor I was given that position, I had the opportunity to go to college for free and get that degree while I was in college. Well, guess what? I started a couple times, but then I was like, well, why am I doing this when I have a job that required a degree? So I didn't follow through with it. Little did I know that about a decade and a half, or about a decade later, I was going to leave that position. And then I would go out looking for a job. I went to Reynolds and Reynolds. I was going to Standard Register. I was going to all these different places that were hiring in the positions that I worked. Now, understand this. This is the funny part. I was looking for jobs that were similar to what I was doing, but while I was doing what I was doing, I hated being there. So why am I looking for it? Because I was trying to follow that money. I was trying to get a job in the same place that I was making that money. And I didn't find a job going that route, okay? Mind you, I was used to wearing a three-piece suit, nice shoes, tie, trench coat, briefcase, had a little hat with a little feather in it, that whole 9 yards, right? I couldn't find it. And it was like 5 months later, after I had left NCR, the post office called. From a test I had taken a year earlier while I was still with that company. It was a joke. My brother had called me. It was like a competition. Let's take this postal test, see who's going to do better. I think he did better, by the way. But I just written it off, forgot about it. It was a joke. It was a fluke. Now 5 months later, I get this call from the post office, a letter from the post office. Go down there, interview. I was hired on at the post office. I mean, who would ever think there'd be a mailman? Especially me. But I did it. There's money. And as it turned out, it paid more money than I had made while I was at NCR. My twitch went away. I had a nervous twitch that went away. I was in the middle of like multi-million-dollar deals constantly. Some went awry. I had a twitch. I was also gaining weight. I was overweight. My office at NCR was right across from the snack area. I was like 211 pounds. And so I took that job. And I lost 30 pounds quick. My twitch went away. Made more money. I was in great shape. But see, a lot of times we'll have folks that pigeonhole themselves into particular type employment, type jobs. I remember when COVID hit. There was a woman on the news that was complaining because she had lost her job. I mean, this was a professional, college degree person, had lost her job, and she couldn't find a job anywhere in her position, in her field. And I'm like, now you have to understand, I'm like 25 years, after I've been with the post office, in my mind thinking, well, your problem is you're only looking at jobs in the field that you've been involved in. Don't do that. You got to look outside the box that you have created for yourself, which is understandable and all. But you're not going to find yourself in this day and age with competition as it is, and you're not only competing with education people, you're not just competing with people with good records. You're also competing with people who are younger than you. That's a tough one. So don't pigeonhole yourself into only a certain kind of job. My wife is a perfect example. She has college education in purchasing, okay, and appropriate. And she was an entrepreneur. And so when I met her, she was working for a mortgage company. And it was after we got married, or just before we got married, she realized working for a mortgage company, she wanted to own her own mortgage company because she saw the bigger picture. So she left that and she started her own mortgage company, and she was doing very well for like 6 years into our marriage. Then, we had the economy, all that stuff go down, and she left that. Now, years later, and we've been married for 25 years now, she owns a preschool. Okay? Now, so get what I'm saying. When I met this woman, she was a mortgage broker. And now she's the owner and principal of a preschool. And she loves it. And when you see her, she's just in it. The kids come up to her, they hug her, they love her, and all that good stuff. She has employees working for her. But I knew her when she was a mortgage broker. So what do you see here? She didn't pigeonhole into one particular type of job. She was flexible. She was fluid. She moved on. You have to be able to move on. Too often we live in the past, and we're not ready to embrace what's for us, okay? I'm saying you gotta let it go. So now I'm gonna zip all the way up to me. Now I want to give you an example in my life that really isn't about looking for a job, but it's about bettering yourself. It's about getting an education. Okay, see, that's very important for all of us. Don't wait. Don't wait like I did, through the opportunities to get an education with a particular company when everything was fine. And then not having that opportunity once I left, okay? But right now, recognize that if you want to progress up the ladder, especially if you're not too old, better yourself. Remember, in order to be competing in this environment today, you need to be better than the person you're competing with. That's what all the term competition is about. You're competing with someone. You got to be better than them. So the key is, you can't. There are people all over, everywhere, that have various degrees, various stages of education. Okay, you can't do anything about what someone else is doing for themselves. Okay, all you have to do is focus on yourself. And what I'm suggesting today is, you just need to better yourself. Better yourself. Learn stuff. Be learning. Be in a constant state of learning. Your entire life should be in a state of learning. Forever. There's never a time to stop. Never a time to stop learning. Always learn. So there is the formal education, because that's what you're looking at competition-wise. See, it's very rare you're going to run into guys like I ran into. The old guy his name was P.T. Hendry. You know, I walked in his office. He was kind of overweight, old guy. He was kind of ragged and rugged looking, smoking cigars. He was kind of jacked. He had on suspenders, his stomach hanging over the suspenders, his shirt sleeves rolled up. I mean, he was the picture of the old guy that would be hiring folks. You know, this is the guy that hired me. And because he just figured I had the ability and I had the integrity to handle a job that I wasn't even educationally, qualified for. You're not going to find those anymore. You're going to find companies now that have stacks and stacks of papers of individuals who have actually formal education. Okay, and as they have volunteer work as far as in their extracurricular activities, and they're healthy and they do this and they do that. You have real competition out there. So you have to make yourself marketable. And this is in every aspect of life, but this is what we're talking about right now. It's you're looking for a husband, you're looking for a wife, make yourself marketable. But we're not talking about that right now. But this is for the job. Competition, make yourself marketable, man. First of all, clean up your act. Don't look all crazy. I'm all unshaven, unkempt, hair unkempt, clothes, wrinkled, unkempt. Get yourself together, man. Every day, get yourself together. Shave if you're a guy, but get yourself together. Wear perfume, wear cologne. Get yourself together and get yourself educated. Okay? So if you're in the if you're still in the workplace, go to night school, man. There was a time when online schools were looked down upon. But now these schools recognize as a business that they are, that is very profitable to offer their programs online. All the major schools, man, MIT, to Ohio State, every school has online classes that you could take. Take some classes, man. Shoot, I started when I was 50 years old just to get an associate degree, just for the heck of it. Man, 10 years later, I earned my MBA. I was 60. Man, if you're 30 or if you're 25 or even if you're 40, if I did it, you can do it. And that's night school, man. That was night school. And it's very important. And so you have a head start. So that way, if your job is cool now, but you're kind of, iffy about it, not knowing if you really want to do it or not, well, persevere. Do your job. Make that money. In the meantime, create a plan. And that plan has to include education. And then you just walk that plan out. And when it comes time, man, you can apply through your own company. Look, I have an associate degree now. What's it going to do for me? I have a bachelor's degree now. What's it going to do for me? I have a master's degree. What's it going to do for me? And if they can't do anything for you, you can move to other companies. And so you'll say, yeah, I worked for this company for 10 years. I'm telling you, man. See, one of the negatives, I guess, about being older and getting a degree is when you go to apply for a job and you have a degree now. But then there's a 23-year-old with that, 24-year-old with that same master's degree. But see, you could suggest, in your presentation, in your elevator speech, in your little, additional comment on your resume, that you held down a job while you attended school, a full-time job, and you still persevered and earned this degree. That's impressive. I'm telling you. And that'll make up. That'll make up for your age when you're competing against someone younger than you, okay? And so what I'm suggesting is it's very important It's very important to better yourself. It's like marketing, man. Market yourself. You have to better yourself to be ready for that competition. And lastly, whatever you plant, you're going to grow. Okay? So the planting entails work. Okay? Planting entails putting your hand to do something. I'm not planting, say, for a farmland or whatever, you're digging the holes. Okay? First you're getting all the rocks out, right? You're smoothing it out, then you're digging the holes, and then you're putting the trenches down, and then you're putting the seeds in, then you cover them up, and then you water the seeds, and you put fertilizer on it, and you appreciate the weather conditions, but it takes work. And finally, there's going to be a sprout, and that sprout is going to grow into a plant, and that plant's going to be growing big enough and will give a harvest. But I think a good thing, and that's what you want, is that harvest. You want that result. You want to make a plan, walk it out, and then reap the benefits of it. But what I want to share with you is that harvest. A harvest rarely resembles the seed planting. Okay? So we have to be open enough, not pigeonholing ourselves to be looking for one particular output, but recognizing the opportunity could come in a myriad of ways. Okay? And just simply recognize that. So the whole time, even from the first part of this talk we were given, recognize the strengths within you. Always make sure you have a proper mindset, a positive mindset. Make sure you're the good guy, you're the good person, that people like you. Make sure that you're healthy. Man, I mean, as much as an organization will be opening up for a lawsuit, if an individual walks in there all overweight and unhealthy looking, and the job goes to the sharp-dressed, sharp-looking, healthy person, they're not going to tell you that's why they picked them. But if you got to pick between 5 people and one person is sharp and the rest of their attributes are the same as all the other candidates, who are you going to pick? I mean, it's like human nature. And so spend the time getting yourself together. So I look at it this: if you're in a job right now that you're not happy with, you should still be taking care of yourself. Get yourself together, because you don't know what the future holds. And if you're in a job that you don't quite like, we quit smoking that weed, we quit doing the drugs, we quit going out, we're saving the money. So while we're saving money, let's be getting ourselves in shape. Let's be changing our diet, eating healthy, exercising every day, getting ourselves together. So while we're saving the money, because the money isn't there yet for us to leave, while we're saving the money, we're also getting ourselves in shape. It'll probably take a while to save up that money, but it'll take a while to get you in shape. At the particular right time, you'll have the money and you'll be in shape. You can leave that job. And I guarantee you, if you're looking good and if you're healthy, you're going to be thinking right, you're going to be thinking positive. You're also going to be impressing whoever it is you're going to get a job before. When they look at you, they look at your resume, they see that you're well, they see that you have an education, they see that you're healthy. Man, you've bettered yourself in so many ways. And so you will get that job. You will reap what you sow. But you got to sow. You got to do the work. You got to put the elbow grease in. And it will pay off. But let me give you a piece of encouragement. Advice, or you might call it a warning. I wouldn't call it a warning. But again, the key to a prosperous and successful continuation of life is that you are forever learning. So even after you graduate and you get your degrees and you're satisfied in formal education, don't stop learning. Keep reading books. Keep seeking knowledge, information, understanding. Keep growing yourself. Keep learning, because the more you learn, the more you grow. The more you grow intellectually, the more your worldview expands. The more your worldview expands, the more opportunities will become visible to you and for you. I'm telling you, there is no limit. The only limit we have is the limitations we place upon ourselves. So challenge yourself. Be critical about yourself. Not harsh, but critical. Begin to adjust the issues in your life. Improve yourself. Make yourself more marketable. Don't be afraid to step out. And then if it's yours, take it. How are you feeling? That's what we're going to talk about today. Contentment. Peace of mind. It seems a prevailing reality across our nation and across the world. anger, and negativity. And it's like we're taking it out on each other. And so we're going to discuss that today, because as individuals, that's no way to live. We want to be happy. We want to be content. Life is very short in this particular part of our existence. And so while we're here, we should be happy. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I believe that the ultimate desire of most human beings, pretty much all human beings that are sane, is a desire to be happy, a desire to be content. And so we have so many ways we go about trying to establish that contentment, whether it's overindulgence in this, overindulgence in that, taking on more education, taking on maybe moving from job to job, moving from relationship to relationship. We do changing our looks, changing our features. We do so many things, but the ultimate bottom line is that we're trying to find contentment, trying to find happiness. And the reason it's so important, maybe because no man is an island, right? We have young people looking up to us. We have husbands and wives, and we're in relationships. We have people that we're attached to and that we're affecting and that we're affected by. So it's very beneficial for us to find out the answer, the culprit to our dilemma. And so that's what we're going to discuss today. I think the first thing we might try to realize or acknowledge is that contentment cannot be found outside of ourselves. I think that's what we find with the drug addict or with the alcoholic, constantly trying to achieve that ultimate buzz, to find that peace, that good feeling. And take, for example, maybe the drug addict that you maybe see on the street every day. It's a good example of most of us in our lives, although that is an extreme. Where that individual at one time was probably finding some joy and happiness in those drugs with their friends, laughing and joking and having a great time. And so the drugs were the thing that would bring them to a particular point of happiness, contentment. But in time, began to realize that it just wasn't enough. And if you look at the drug addict now on the street, they don't look happy. They don't look like they're having a good time. But they're striving and striving to attain that which they will never reach, because they're looking for satisfaction from the outside, and their satisfaction is actually coming from the inside. There's a religious parable that speaks of a farmer who sowed seed, planted seed. And he was planting seed, and he scattered his seed, and some of his seed scattered on the path. And as the story goes, the fowls of the air came and gobbled those seeds up. He spread them in other places where there was rocky ground, where they could not take root. And when the sun came up, it scorched the new plants and they died. And in other places, the seed fell among thorns, and they were choked as they began to grow, and they perished as well. And then there are other seeds that were planted on good ground. They grew, they had deep roots. They appreciated the sunlight. They grew strong and produced more and more and more, 100-fold. And I believe that the seed is that good thing in each of us that has the potential to be something great. And I'm seeing the type ground is us, maybe from a psychological perspective or a subconscious perspective. That place where that potential seed must take root to grow so an individual can become all that they desire to be. And see, I'm taking this thing back to the family, to the home, the individual homes that we all have come up in. Our homes look different attributes, certain strengths, certain weaknesses. And unfortunately for most of us, there are certain dysfunctions in all of our homes, some dysfunction worse than the other. And what I'm suggesting then today is that this is the culprit. The homes that we have come up in, the ground that we were raised in. and the seeds that were planted. That seed was our potential, how it grew or how it didn't grow. And so when I see the seed that was scattered among the path and was eaten up by the fowls of the air, that shows me a seed that was planted in a home, in a place where there is no real love. There's nothing even having the ability to even attempt to take root. Because love is unknown. The other seed was scattered and it fell among the rocks. And there was no place for it to take root. That root is relationship, family relationship. Lacking. There's no root. So they begin to grow. They begin to look like they're supposed to look. But the moment there is pressure, the moment there is heat, the sun that scorched those new plants that had no root, the potential dies. And as well, there was the seed that was scattered among the thorns. And as they began to grow, they were choked out and they died. To me, I see that is an individual that has no moral compass, that hasn't the ability to know right from wrong. And as they begin to grow, there are so many paths, so many obstacles. And that potential never gets realized. But then as the story goes, that seed, there's a seed that is planted on good ground, good, healthy ground. And that's the ground from a functional family. Now, even in good, healthy ground, there are always things within the ground. There are impurities within that ground. But overall, the majority of that ground is good soil, fertilized soil, which has the right ingredients so that seed can fulfill its ultimate potential. And that's where we all would like to be. That's where we all should be. But very rarely do most of us ever get there. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because I believe we can get there. And so many of us, as we've grown up in families that were satisfactory to us, even though they weren't the best environment, I mean, we know that. But we survived. We graduated high school, many of us graduated college, and we're out here in the world, but we're wondering why it's just not coming together. And what I'm suggesting is that there are some of these issues that have plagued us throughout our lives that we just weren't aware of, because it's the soil in our subconscious, the soil in our minds, the soil in our hearts that is just not allowing that seed, that potential seed to grow. And we need it to grow, because that's where our lack of contentment resides. And the biggest problem is that this thing creates cycles, generational cycles in families, because if we haven't dealt with it, if we haven't found the remedy, if we haven't even recognized the culprit, we're going to repeat that environment that we grew up in as the environment that we are creating for our children, that they will grow up in, and their children will create, their children will create it if somebody doesn't, that light bulb doesn't go off. And so that's very difficult. It's very difficult because we have to be critical about ourselves, and that's something in our society it's very difficult for us to do because it's hurtful, it's painful. You know, oftentimes it takes some reflection, some personal reflection, and when you personally reflect deeply, you come up with things at times that you don't want to face, things at times that you may have suppressed because of the pain. Has to be realized. Sometimes we find ourselves just in negative moods, negative personality, negative character traits, perpetrating these ills upon the other people that we're in a relationship with, family members, friends, co-workers, fellow parishioners, fellow citizens. Hurtful. So I'm suggesting that we have to come to the conclusion, first of all, do we want to be well? Or are we satisfied with this particular lot in life? I think most of us would, if we were honest, would determine that we don't want to be that way. We don't want to be negative. We don't want to be walking in this funk for the rest of our lives, not being able to even come close to attaining our potential. So the first thing we're going to have to do is recognize and admit that it's nobody's, I don't want to say fault, but nobody's going to fix your situation but you, okay? Blaming other folks isn't going to fix the situation. I think we see it in politics a lot, especially in this nation, where we find folks that are disgruntled with life. And then we have ambitious politicians simply desiring to climb the ladder of power in the political realm, and they will use the people by any means necessary. So they will feed the masses with a bunch of disinformation, with a bunch of negativity about somebody else on the other side. And it's like a rallying point. It's an ability to take the pain off themselves and focus on someone else. But when you do that, you're not trying to improve yourself. You're simply blaming somebody else for the ills of your life, and that is going to take you nowhere. I see it sometimes, you hear about prison life. You hear about when a child abuser goes to prison, and then that child abuser is very abused in prison because of his crime. And sometimes even killed. But if you think about the hypocrisy in that, the prisoners that kill him have been taken off of the streets of society, have been removed from the society because they are not worthy to live amongst the society, because they are authors of chaos and crime and pain and even murder and rape in our society. But they find themselves self-justified when they identify an individual put in prison with them who they can determine their crime is worse than theirs. So in a sense, they're doing the same thing we do. We have to find someone that we can take the focus off of ourselves, off of our pain, off of our discontentment, and put it on someone else. Take it out on that individual. But when that individual is killed, we're back again having to face ourselves, the discontentment. So we have to recognize that our lack of contentment, that the ills of our minds, the ills of our lives, these ills and negativities that we create, it's within us. It's on nobody else. Because the reality is, this is what we're all going through, from one form or one stage or another. So I haven't the luxury to blame you for my ill state. You haven't the luxury to blame somebody else for your ill state. You have to fix yours. I have to fix mine. I find it very interesting, and it's a good example of the negativities when the Olympics, the 2023 Olympics, and we're looking at some of these players like that young runner from Texas, Sha'Carri Richardson. She had a little run-in with the doping commission, and she was banned from a particular Olympics because they found weed in her system. And she didn't complain. She just worked hard, and came back to this Olympics and just blew them all away. I think she walked away with 2 golds and a bronze. And so that individual like this should be celebrated. But as you go on social media and look at a lot of the comments, the people are really harsh, really coming down on her hard for one reason or another, bringing up her past or just ridiculing her for who she is. And even though she beat some folks, saying you're not as good as they are, just finding a way to ridicule this individual. Why? Why would you? Because you're walking around with ills of your own, and rather than face your own, it's easier to put the focus on somebody else. I think Angel Reese, a college basketball player, has taken a lot of flack. A young person in her early 20s, a millionaire now, has found a way of success. But people are really ragging on her hard. Why? Because they're not well within themselves. When you're well within yourself, this is a good sign. This is a good sign. You can look at the gauge and see if you're too hot or too cold, if you're just right. A good sign, a gauge for an individual is, how do you celebrate other people? Do you celebrate people or do you tear them down? I was noticing the other day as I was driving down the highway, and there was an individual a couple lanes over. He made a bad move. Inconvenienced the truck. The truck driver got so mad, and he was just hitting his horn, banging his horn, all angry and everything. And I got to thinking that the man just made a mistake. Why is this truck driver so angry? And then I got to thinking about how many times I've made mistakes on the road. How many times other folks have made mistakes on the road. I don't believe if you've been driving for any serious length of time that you haven't made a mistake that inconvenienced someone else. That's simply a reality. We've all done this. So if you have done it, do you really have the right to get mad when someone does it to you? Because you know that when you did it, it was an accident. But when somebody else does it, you get so angry with them. And it's no more an accident on their part than it was on your part when you did the same thing. So why do we respond this way when we know it's not fair, when we know it's not real? Because we are not happy, we're not content inside. When you're content inside, you excuse the errors of others. When you're content inside, you celebrate the victory of others. When you are not content inside, you disparage the errors of others. When you are not content inside, you don't celebrate the victories of other folks. Man, when I see businesses that are prospering, especially small businesses, I celebrate the folks, even if it's in an area of business that I have no interest in. I love to see people put their hands to do things and make them prosper. The reality is, if you don't, there's an issue within you. I'm just naming off all these gauges that we can look at when we see foreigners come to this nation and start businesses and prosper. Whether it's Koreans or folks from India or folks from the Middle East, Africa, anywhere. And they come here and they make it. And so many Americans get mad. Well, why do they get mad? You were already here. Because they have a lack of contentment within themselves. Folks that are successful don't criticize because they recognize the path that it took them to be successful was a struggle. And so anytime they see others on that same path or successful, they recognize the path that individual took to get there wasn't all that easy. So we do have to begin to judge ourselves and recognize the red flags in our own lives that we're simply not happy. People are not happy. Look at the health condition of most people. So many people, especially in this nation, are overweight and obese. Even to the point where we've made it wrong to even suggest that someone is overweight or obese in an effort not to have to face the gauge. It reminds me of when I was a kid, I had a 62 Comet when I was in high school. And I didn't really know that much about cars, and I really had no time to be working on cars, even the simplest fixes, So if I'm driving along and I hear the engine clicking, I know that it needs some oil. I didn't have time to stop, so I just keep on driving. That clicking would get louder. I would just turn the radio up so I wouldn't hear the clicking. And so we ignore the warning signs. But if we just address the issue, the warning signs would dissipate. They wouldn't be there. There would be no need. And so when you have an individual that's unhealthy because of a lifestyle, in taking the wrong type foods or not exercising, not taking care of themselves, not getting enough rest, just self-sabotaging, taking drugs, drinking alcohol, all these things are just signs of an individual who's got some sort of problem going on. It's all of us pretty much in one form or another. Because who would self-sabotage? Maslow, he said, and I think we could all pretty much agree that the most basic human trait is survival. That's the most basic among all of us. So why then would we partake in actions and activities that self-sabotage, that are a detriment to our health, that are a detriment to our lives, that are actually killing us? Because something is wrong with us. We're not content inside. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I think I've depressed us enough so far. But I just wanted to drive this home that there are issues that we have, and if we look carefully, we can live with them so long, we can acquiesce to, oh, well, this is just who I am. That guy's just grumpy, or whatever. Have these issues, but no. What I'm suggesting is there are underlying issues of unhappiness because of the environments that we were raised in. And what I'm suggesting is that these are preventing us from attaining the great potential that each of us were born in this world to attain. And so we're going to try to fix that today. So how do we fix it? How do we fix the issue? Because this thing has taken years and years. It's gotten us to the point where we're kind of jacked up. How can we be made well? So as I said, the first thing we have to do is acknowledge it. Recognize we're not well. Recognize that we need to be well. Recognizing that the only way we're going to be well is by fixing ourselves. So what I would suggest to him is looking at all these symptoms of our illness. Now ordinarily what I'm going to suggest wouldn't work in a regular physical life, but we're talking about things that are up here or in our subconscious. When I go here, this means the subconscious, but really it's all up here, okay? Is that, if you have a regular sickness, say you have the chicken pox or you have the flu or whatever kind of illness you have, and you have symptoms of that illness, treating the symptoms is not going to cure the illness, okay? It might give you some relief, some temporary relief, but it's not going to cure the illness, okay? And what I'm suggesting is in the same way when we have mental issues going on, things that are troubling us, things that are deeply troubling us, that have caused us to walk the wrong paths in life, smoking that weed is simply treating a symptom of the illness. Okay, drinking that alcohol is simply treating a symptom of the illness. And so we have to ask ourselves, this is a time, what they call the come to Jesus moment. This is a time just to be real with ourselves, If you are okay, why would you have to alter your mind, alter your brain in order to feel good? You should be feeling good already. Okay, so recognize that's number one, okay? So we're going to need to be addressing our symptoms, and that's how we're going to find our place to wellness. When it's something emotional, when it's something mental like this, first we have to identify the symptoms and begin rolling those symptoms back. So with the weed and with the alcohol, it's easy. We need to stop. Stop doing those things. And then you'll be faced with your real issues. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to identify the real issues. It's almost like it's having the evidences and you don't know the cause. And so you're following the evidences all the way back, and eventually you'll get to the cause. That's what we're trying to do. There was this thing in business. Some of you may have heard of Six Sigma. It's a way to determine problems that you're having in a business or in an organization to fix them. And one of the tools is this concept called the 5 whys. And the way the 5 whys work is you look at a situation that's really jacked up. And this is unacceptable. And so this end result here, you ask why. Why is this happening? Okay? So say you're in a business that's delivering packages to a customer and the package is late. So you say, why is the package late? Okay? Because this is where it's at and it's after 5 o'clock. So why is the package late? Because the truck came in late. That's a why. So if the truck was here on time, the package would have been on time. Okay, why was the truck late? The truck was late because the workers got the package to the dock later than it should have been, and so the truck had to wait around and leave later. Well, why did they get the package to the dock later than it should have been? Why? Because the people in the warehouse didn't get the paperwork to pull that package, to take it to the dock so the truck could leave. Well, why didn't they get the paperwork? Keep asking whys. Why? Because the computer system doesn't come on until 8 o'clock in the morning to kick out all these orders. Well, why doesn't the computer system? Because that's the way the instructions work, because the guy doesn't come in to the office until 3 hours before that to turn the power on. And you keep asking whys all the way back till you get to the culprit why. And as you fix that culprit why, all the other issues resolve themselves, okay? And what I'm suggesting today, that's how it is in life. So we have these issues, we look at the symptoms, and we ask why. Why? Roll them all the way back. And oftentimes they come back to our family because that's where we started. That's where we came into this thing. And for some of us, we might find situations that happened after the family. Maybe it was a bad marriage that lasted for 15 to 20 years that got the mind all jacked up. It could be anything, but we need to find that out. And I'm just suggesting to you right now, we need to start by getting rid of that buzz. Getting rid of the mask that conceal the issues. And then begin looking at the issues. And so we could say then maybe we're down on ourselves. We have a negative self-image. Could have been from the marriage. Could have been from the family coming up. Daddy always told me I was ugly. Mom always told me I was stupid. I never make anything of myself. Who knows? Maybe I was molested. Any of these things. And maybe more of these things than just one. And sometimes all of these things and more. So how do we begin to fix those things? Some of the people that were the culprits, they're not even here anymore. They're dead and we're still going through these issues. We have to find a way to roll these back. We have to begin to convince ourselves of what we truly are and how those are not. We are great. We have the potential to do great things. I always raise my children, whatever it is you're struggling in, whatever you want to be, whatever you want to do, look at somebody that's doing it. They have 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head like you. If they can do what you can, figure out what it is they're doing. So they're becoming successful at it, and you do that as well. That's the way you live. That's the way you live life. And so what I'm suggesting is we need to begin affirming ourselves in every kind of way possible, okay? I remember once I was in the neighborhoods, in an inner city neighborhood, and this guy that knew me, he was kind of halfway homeless, kind of jacked up. He was always dirty. He was always really, really messed up looking for money. And he knew me, and he said, hey Jarvis, give me a word. And I think he was looking for, and I was in a hurry that day. I said, hey man, just pray every day. And I was kind of blowing. He said, no. He said, I need a real word. He knew I was just blowing him off, and I felt kind of guilty. And so I said, come here, man, listen. And I sat there for a second, and I thought, well, it took like a half a minute. I said, look, every day do something good for yourself. Every day do something good for yourself. Today you might look at your toenails, trim your toenails. That's it. Tomorrow you might want to trim your fingernails. That's it. The next day you might want to get some of the knots, out of your hair. Whatever it is you need to do every day, promise yourself, do something good for yourself every day. Eventually, he's going to come to the point where he's going to be struggling to find something good that he can do for himself. And he's going to do himself right out of the negative situations that he's in, because eventually the physical things are going to begin to dissipate. And he's going to be working on, what can I learn? What can I understand? Maybe I need to find some way to get a new pair of socks. A new pair of jeans, a new shirt, a new jacket, a new hat. Eventually, somehow, I need to go to the community college. And if he's looking halfway decent, not looking all crazy and everything, somebody might share him the path to go to the community college. After that, he's going through there 2-3 years in the community college. He's going to be getting enlightened on how to go to the next phase. And he's going to do himself good every day right out of his situation. That's a self-affirmation. When you're simply doing good for yourself every day, starting with your toenails, you're affirming yourself every day. Man, when you're looking in the mirror every day, everybody looks in the mirror every day. Man, take advantage of it. Say something to yourself. Man, you're successful. You're smart. You're handsome. You love everybody. Think of anything, whatever area you're struggling in life. It might seem like a lie at first, but it's what you desire to be. Okay? Because we need to understand that we have a choice to be whatever we want to be. Even from a subconscious perspective, we are functioning in that place where we desire to be. So if your life is all jacked up, you're mean, you're negative, and everything is just vile about you, that's where you want to be. So I'm suggesting this is the way to change your feeling about yourself. You can decide consciously where you want to be and begin affirming yourself every day in the mirror. Just pick 5 things. I'm strong. I'm healthy. I'm vibrant. I'm successful. I'm loving. 5 every day, and just affirm those. Maybe when you're putting on lotion, or when you're shaving, or when you're putting on, or whatever you're doing, just affirm those 5 things. They don't have to be over and over, just one time in the mirror every morning. To the point where you're going to be making those affirmations in such habit form that you're not even going to be realizing that you're saying these things, and it's going to be seeping into your subconscious. And before you realize it, one day you're going to be that. I'm telling you, that's affirmation. Recognize that. Another way of affirmation, self-affirmation, taking care of yourself, is to begin eating healthy. Every time you eat something that's not healthy, you're not affirming yourself. You're not affirming that you're well. You're doing just the opposite. You need to exercise. We know that. We need to do some cardio. Get that heart pumping. We need that as well. If you're overweight, realize this as well. We need to begin eating correctly. We need to begin exercising. Each time you eat correctly, each meal that you eat that is correct, you're affirming yourself that you are well, that you are healthy. Every day when you exercise, what should be every day, you're affirming that you're well, that you're healthy. You're affirming yourself. Take care of yourself. Now, I'm waiting because those are the easy parts, believe it or not. Now, the hardest part, I think, for us is to forgive ourselves. Because of our condition, we have been negative toward other people. Okay? Whether it's a racial thing, whether it's a sexist thing, whether it's a gender issue, mad at people who are not like us. And this isn't even affirming them, it's recognizing there is something in me that makes me critical of others who are simply making choices for themselves, okay? And not getting them off the hot seat because they're going through the same things themselves. Some of the issues, who knows? What a tangled web we weave. I mean, this stuff goes pretty deep. The first thing we need to do is forgive ourselves for what we have done to other people, said to other people, been toward other people, thought about other people. And now the hardest part is that before we can forgive ourselves, we have to be forgiven by them. Oh man, that's going to be a tough one. And so what I'm suggesting is now it's not feasible to go up to everyone that is affected by what we have done and ask forgiveness for. But we definitely have to change our position on topics that have harmed other people, that have demonized other people, simply because of our negative attitude toward what it is they espouse for themselves. You have to. And just acknowledgement is enough. Like we have an issue in this nation today, a racial issue, an issue over slavery, an issue over reparations, and an issue over simply acknowledgement. We have even gone so far, today as to be in some school systems, in some states, to begin teaching that slavery wasn't so bad, to exonerate the individual from having to actually respond to what they know is wrong, okay? And what I'm suggesting is that this isn't political. I'm just saying the damage that it's doing to each individual is that everybody knows the truth. So as you suppress it, as you deny it, as you celebrate the banning of truth, you're just solidifying your own dysfunction. You're not going to be able to climb out of that because you haven't resolved this inner situation, this inner offense that you have perpetrated against other folks. Now, I'm not at all suggesting that there needs to be reparations. I'm not at all suggesting anything like that. I'm simply saying that for your own personal wellness, you have to acknowledge truth. You can't get on the bandwagon of denying what history, of denying what you know is true. And it's the same with a man. Now, let me give you an example. I'm trying to get a good example. Of a man who loves his wife But one night or one day in a fit of rage, maybe he had been drinking alcohol, whatever the reason was, but he gets so mad and he hits her maybe 2 or 3 times. And then he feels real bad about it. Of course he will. It's the next day he sees her and she's bruised, got bruises, a little black eye and everything, and he feels terrible. But he doesn't say he's sorry. He's sorry, but he just doesn't have it within him to say that he's sorry. Okay? And so now every time he sees her, he just feels sorry of what he did. Okay? But eventually, if he never resolves that, if he never apologizes, eventually he's going to begin resenting her every time he sees her, because it's going to remind him of what he did and the bad feeling that he has. So initially he was just feeling bad every time he saw her. But in time, he became resentful toward her because of the way he was feeling when she showed up. Eventually, in time, if he's still not dealt with it properly, he's going to be getting angry with her, because that resentment is going to turn to anger. He's angry because he resents her. He resents her because he knows he was guilty, but he hasn't made it right with her. What I'm suggesting to you, as it goes on far enough, he might even going to hit her again, because that anger is going to turn to violence. The violence that is a result of the anger that is a result of the resentment that is a result of the sadness that is a result that he never made it right. And so what do you think? Consider all that. What do you think all that's doing to the individual? What do you think it's doing to his wife? So now she's got issues about him, because she knows he created all this situation, and he's being unfair to her, not apologizing, being mean to her, being angry to her. What is this creating within her for him? And what could it possibly be creating in her toward all men? And what is it creating within him, this inability to deal with this issue that he has? So I'm suggesting is we need to forgive ourselves, but we cannot forgive ourselves until we get forgiveness. And in large-scale situations like most of us live in, most of us were raised in, simple acknowledgement is asking forgiveness enough. That's what I'm suggesting. That is the affirmation for yourself, and that is the doorway being opened. So you got some homework to do. You got some stuff to do, but it's attainable. And you know, there's a religious saying that you reap what you sow. That means you will grow what you plant. Okay? What goes around comes around. Karma. You know, every culture, every society has a form of that particular saying. And why is it? Because it seems to be true. But the problem is, and this is what I want to leave you with, the problem is when we say, you know, what goes around comes around, or you're going to reap what you sow, or karma, usually we're saying it in a negative way to somebody we believe deserves something bad to happen to them because of what they've done. And you know, that might all very well be good, but usually that's self-serving as well, because again, we're putting our focus on them rather than admitting that we are how culpable in the situations of our own lives, okay? So what I'm suggesting is take that same religious saying, you reap what you sow, or the what goes around comes around, or karma, you know, take all that. And don't look at it as far as the negative. If you do bad, it's going to come back to you. I mean, it is true. But what I'm suggesting is use it for the positive. If what goes around truly comes around, and you want good in your life, begin doing good in other people's lives. If you're actually going to reap what you've sown, begin planting some good stuff so you'll reap it back. So whatever it is you're lacking in life, begin to sow that in the lives of others. If you're lacking love, sow love in the life of others. Find people in the community that are alone, that are in need, of communication, of relationship, of communion, and begin to sow help and love into their lives. Whatever it is that you're in need of, man, this is number uno. This is number one. I mean, after you've already forgiven yourself, which comes after you've acknowledged the ills that you have perpetrated on others, even in your mindsets, your actions, man, begin sowing good. And I'll leave you with this little story about myself, of course. I spent 17 years going into juvenile detention talking to the young people every week, trying to encourage them. I missed 4 weeks in 17 years. And I would go in there. I didn't just go in there to talk to them. I would go in there because I would speak to them. There would be like 40 of them in folding chairs every week. And then afterwards, I would speak to them one-on-one if they wanted to talk personally. And what I'm suggesting is that 17 years, when I'd go in there, I wouldn't just go in there to talk about anything. I would rack my mind and do research and look up stuff and think of stuff and write stuff, what I could tell these young people that would give them hope, that would give them love, that would open their eyes, that would give them peace of mind, that would help change their lives. Every day, every week I would come in there for 17 years attempting to help them by giving them anything that I could to help their lives. Now check this out. I know some of you are going to find this hard to believe, but if you're struggling, just don't find this hard to believe. Now whenever I'd, come out of there every week, when I'd finish up, probably about 11:30, 12 in the afternoon or whatever, I'd run into people and they'd be telling me, oh, this is a good thing you're doing, Mark. This is a wonderful thing that you're doing. Everybody would try to give me praise and pat me on the back for what I was doing at Juvenile. What I'm going to share with you today is that I got more out of that juvenile detention center than those young people did because of the concept of sowing and reaping. Now look, if you sow one seed, you're probably going to get one plant growth. But what do farmers do? They sow thousands of seeds and they get a big harvest, okay? So every week for 17 years, I would walk in there and there's just one of me. And I would speak into the lives of 20, 30, or 40 kids. I would speak love into their life, hope, prosperity, peace of mind, every kind of encouragement I could come up with, I would speak into their lives. So now using this concept of sowing and reaping, as I was sowing in the lives of 20 or 30 or 40 people over that long, when I was halfway through, I had been there doing that about 8 or 9 years. I had calculated approximately how many kids I had spoken with up in that, and it came out to about 9,000 kids. That was at my halfway point through doing that time at juvenile detention. So just take that number, 9,000 kids, and there's just one of me. If I have sowed into 9,000 young people's lives, and you reap what you sow, what do you think this one person is reaping back from those 9,000 lives alive? Not only that, if you look at each individual, I'm telling you something right now, this is getting good. If you take one of those individuals whose lives that I sowed into, okay, whose trajectory of life was changed because I spoke into their lives, because we know that every incident, every encounter, everything that you experience in life changes you. We know that if I have given this young person something, this young person will have kids one day, and that he will be able to impart something into them that he would not have had I not spoken to him. His kids will impart into their kids will impart into their kids. So there's an old saying that if you kill one man, you've killed a world. That's because of the exponential reality of the offspring of each individual. Now, I've spoken to 9,000 kids halfway through my time at juvenile detention. Each one of those speaking to the lives of their kids because of the changes from their lives, just from our conversation. What do you think I'm sowing back? Okay. So when I hear that religious parable, or when I hear what goes around comes around, I don't look at it from a negative. I mean, I'm thinking if what goes around really comes around, if I'm really going to reap what I'm sowing, I'm going to be intentional about going out and doing as much good as I can for everybody that I can. But no, instead, go on social media, go on Facebook, go on Instagram, and see how many folks are actually negative and ridiculing folks and being harsh on folks. What do you think they're reaping back? What do you think you're reaping back when you do that? Stop it. Be the messenger of good. You'll reap back, I'm telling you, man. You begin affirming yourself in that mirror every day, doing something good for yourself every day, speaking positiveness and life into everybody you can that you meet, good stuff, not being negative, not being critical anymore. Man, and you're gonna affirm yourself right out of your negativity, and you're gonna be on your way to attaining that potential you were created to attain. Yeah, there's one. I don't know if we should go any further than this, but there's a little point that we want to make when we talk about potential. What was your potential? You want to say as a baby you had the potential to do great things, anything, maybe? Or you could say your potential was that when you were getting this insight, this day, at this moment, and you changed your mind, you had a change of heart. This was when your potential was going to kick in to do those great things. So this might simply have been your destiny, this moment right here. Pick it around. Anyway, think about it. I do want to thank you for joining me and listening. And I want to invite you to listen again. You take care. Bye.